Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So I'm back again on Maven. My name is Amrita, just to introduce again, and I'm a storyteller. I also paint as a hobby, and I have been an HR professional for over 30 years. And this is my second session at Maven, and I'm very, very excited, just like I was in the first one. So the first session was, a session where I told you all a story, and I wanted to introduce you to the power of storytelling. And today, I will share with you how to build a story and how you can use it in your daily life to influence situations and influence people with your ideas. So that's why the session is titled as Let's Weave a Story. So let's start. I want you to, visualize as I say. So, how would a story start? Probably something like once upon a time or many years ago, and or in a village of India there lived an old woman. So the time is of extreme importance in a story. The setting of the story has to be right in the right era, in the right world, in the right time. For example, somewhere in South Madras, on a very hot summer evening, there was a house surrounded with lush green trees on a quiet street. Quiet, except for the shrill laughter of the children, interspersed with the tranquil voice of an old woman, maybe telling them stories on Mahabharata or Ramayana or some other folk fable. So, as I spoke all this, you could picture the time, the setting, the environment, and some elements helped you build a picture on in your mind. So storytelling is that powerful tool, audio tool, which helps you get visuals. So how is that possible? Visualization is a very, very important technique for a lot of creative people, for sports people, creative people. They visualize the entire story in their minds before they are able to write it down. And it's like a screenplay that plays in their mind. It's a movie. And the sports people, they visualize themselves on a winning streak, standing on the podium with a gold medal or a trophy held high. So all this creates a positive reinforcement in the mind and helps you achieve whatever you wish to achieve. So storytelling has that power to help you move or help your audience to move in the direction which you want them to see. So as you visualize, it also enhances, it titillates your imagination. So when I said a hot summer evening, you can actually probably feel the heat, sultry, humid, and not a wisp of breeze blowing. So all that is imagination, but it was visualized because of your imagination. So storytelling helps in the building the imagination. So right now you could be sitting anywhere, in your homes, maybe on your dining table, maybe on your comfortable chair, or maybe just walking around, working on some things. But picture yourself that probably you're sitting next to a beautiful river, and or you're sitting in the mountains and the cool breeze is blowing. So nothing stops you from creating a beautiful environment for yourself, which will help you enjoy the session more. So there's nothing. Or some people, they also visualize that they are in a big room full of powerful people, and they are talking to them, and they're discussing their ideas with them. It's all very, very positive reinforcement, and that is what storytelling is all about. And because of your imagination and visualization, because it triggers off the imagination and the technique of the visualization, it engages you very quickly, the audience very quickly. So immediately your mind goes into various eras, various places. You travel the world in your imagination. You visualize South Madras. So it's very engaging, and hence when it engages, it also gives you a higher level of concentration, because you would then probably listen to the speaker with more intent, because you want to know what is going to happen. Is it in the line with your imagination, or can you imagine further, more and beyond what is being said? So your degree of concentration increases much more. This is a big issue in today's world, having concentration, focus. People, especially the youngsters, are losing all their power of concentration. That's why we have those reels, and we have those shorts on YouTube and reels on Instagram, because that is only what interests everybody. It's all because of the technology that we are losing our power of concentration and focus. So the reels, why did the reels become so popular? Because they tell a story in a time span of 15 seconds to 90 seconds. That is the average time a reel or a short has to be made. And in that also, the first 5 or 6 seconds are most crucial, because if you catch the attention of the viewer in that 5 to 6 seconds, chances are that he or she may not scroll and would watch the reel to the entirety, to the end. So that is the level of concentration or focus that we have today. And it's all because of technology. It has a flip side. Technology is a boon as well as a bane. So this is the flip side of technology, of social media. So it is yoga is one technique to enhance your concentration, but storytelling is a much more enjoyable, because everybody can't meditate, can't do yoga, they find it difficult. So storytelling is a much more enjoyable way of enhancing your concentration. And once you concentrate on something, the idea gets retained by you faster. You understand anything that is interesting, you understand that better. And if you retain it better, obviously you will recall it better. So that means storytelling can be a powerful tool for educating people also. Very complex ideas can be put across in a very simple way. So I use storytelling in a lot of training sessions in my organization. I am in the field of HR. And honestly, I have been, if we are in a situation at office, and my subordinates or my associates need to understand something, then it is always better to put it in a humorous and light manner, so that it hits them and they're able to retain it faster. So and also in training sessions, so this is something when we are discussing day-to-day problems, or we are having a serious training session. So storytelling there is no bondage to a situation or a time when storytelling can be given. It can be woven into your daily life, and your influence can be far greater with the art of storytelling. Storytelling also evokes a lot of emotions. So when I said it's a quiet street, surrounded with lush green, a house surrounded with lush green trees. So probably you like the tranquility of it, the calmness, the coolness of it. You can feel it. And it may have reminded you of a place where you have visited sometime in your past, or maybe your grandparents' home, maybe your home in the village. So something which is very close to your heart may have woken up. And when the right emotions are hit upon, then it creates empathy. That means the listener would come into the shoes of the speaker and understand at a higher degree what the idea is being propagated. So, this is the power of storytelling. Now, when you know of all this power, then it becomes easy to weave a story or spin a tale. So that's why we call it weaving or spinning. Well, there's a different connotation to that. Let me just tell you or share something about this. Spinning happens in a line. So you have the cotton and you roll it and it becomes the thread. And when it becomes thread, it is easier to weave a cloth then. It's a linear progression. Similarly, a story is also a linear progression. One thing leads to the other, but it doesn't necessarily have to be practical and realistic. It can be imaginative. So the linear progression can be imaginative. So let's just start on how to build a story. Now, first of all, as I told you, the time has to be right. So somewhere in South Madras. Now, Madras is something which was, Chennai was known as Madras many years ago. So you know that the setting is not of today or just a few years back. It is probably in the 70s when Chennai was known as Madras. I have not given you the time, but it took you to that year. I did not give you the year or anything like that, but it took you to the year because I said it in that way. Right? So the time has to be absolutely crisp and right, like millions of years ago. So, millions of years. It is really, really when the earth was being formed at that time it happened. Or in, in the land of Bharat, there was like my last story. So you know where it is set and how the story is going to be woven around it. So it creates an environment in your mind and an expectation in your mind. Now, if I'm saying South Madras, I cannot say that there was a man scrolling through a mobile phone. It will create a conflict in your mind that this is something not correct here, though you may not be able to point. So that setting of the story, the time of the story has to be very crisp and very clear. The second thing, the language that you can use any language, English, Hindi, any other language of India, or foreign languages, if you can express yourself well in it. The speaker has to be very, very fluent in the language, grammatically correct, and also the speaker should be able to emote in that language. This is very important. Hindi is probably a spoken language spoken by all of us, but I am more comfortable in speaking in English or emoting in English. Hence, I speak in English when I'm telling a story, though it is a foreign language to me. So these two things have to be taken care of before you start building a story. Now, the third important thing in a story is that it has to be based on facts. It cannot be, now this would maybe bring about a question that how can something based on fact be imaginative? So let me just tell you that the last story which I told, was about a princess called Varsha in the land of Bharat, and the king was Aryavrat. Now, these are all facts. India is known as Bharat, and India was also known as Aryavrat. So this was a mighty king of India. So you know the setting is India. This is a fact. The rest of the story that you know that she fell in love with somebody and but her suitor was another king who was the mountain from the north of the mountain kingdom, Giri. This is a fact. We know that the mountains are in the north, and that is where the monsoons strike back and come. And we also know that the monsoons are brought from the south by the winds. So these are all facts. And there was a story just woven with those facts to help understand better. Whether, sometimes people do not, I am not talking about children. There are many teenagers or, adults also, young adults, who actually do not know how the monsoons happen in India. So this could be an educative way of telling them. Let me share one more thing with you. The last story which I said was about the Varsha, King Princess Varsha, and someone heard it on the YouTube and wrote a comment. I do not know if it is a he or she. I'm assuming that it's a lady who wrote that comment, that she used my story to introduce the game of chess to the kids at a summer camp. Now, I was really delighted, that somebody has used my story to convey and educate somebody. Though she did change my story a bit, which is okay because it is her story. It's not my story. She was inspired by my story. So what she did was she changed it to the point where Varsha has cries and reluctantly agrees to a father that okay, both of them, Giri and Varun, can have a competition. So from there on, she changed it. So she cried. What her version of the story was that Varsha cried for 3 days and she was so upset. And then an old wise man came and he said, "Why should we have a competition which can lead to bloodshed? So let's give the white color to the King Giri and the black color to the knight, and let's have this game." And he introduced the chess game. So this is the way his horses are going to move. This is the way his elephants are going to move. This is the way his camel moves. And whosoever wins will win the hand of the prince. Now, this was her way of teaching the children the game of chess. And she also wrote in the comment that at the end of the summer camp, when the kids were asked, what did they like the best? The story was the thing which they all remembered. So it was such a wonderful feeling. I was really delighted. So just telling you that the story does not necessarily have to be realistic or practical. Your imagination can go anywhere, but the facts have to be right on that. Okay. Once you have the setting, the environment, the general time era, then you put some relatable characters in that, some compelling and relatable characters in your story. Not many characters. The story should always have 2 or 3 major characters. One character can also do. Not necessarily that you have to have 2 or 3 only, but not 7, 8 characters, because that leads to a lot of conflict in the mind of the listener. So come with just 2, 3 characters, and that is it. And we build your story about, like Simba, the Lion King. We know Simba, everybody knows about him and his adventures. Then Varsha, the princess, and Harry Potter. So there are many characters in Harry Potter, but the whole story weaves around Harry Potter and one evil guy called Voldemort, the guy who must not be named, but I named him. So that is how you build your story on that. Then the world which you have created in South Madras, beautiful house, quiet street, lush green trees, you have to make it as rich as possible so that it is easier to visualize. That's why I gave it color of the trees. I could have just said a house on a quiet street. That may not have had that impact as saying a house surrounded by lush green trees on a quiet street. So that means you have given it some color, lush green color. Now, green has so many shades. Each of you would be visualizing a combination of shades, or maybe just one shade, or light green, parrot green, dark green, olive green, what green, I don't know. But it has enriched that visual in your mind. Also, the world has to be immersive. By immersive, I mean it has to be 3D in words. So you have to see it as if you are actually there and absorbing those moments and those situations, those patterns around you. So it has to be immersive. Now, when you put compelling and relatable characters there, obviously, if there are characters, whether animals or whatever, uh, humans, animals, you have to give an emotional connect also to it. So I would say lush green trees, yeah, or I would say a beautiful thick forest, or I would say sparkling rivers flowing, or I would say moonlight like silver. So it immediately, gives you feelings like beautiful thick forest with dark, sinister creatures. This probably will evoke fear or anticipation. What next? Is it an evil story? Is it an adventure? Is it magic? What is it? Sparkling rivers with dancing fish and beautiful mermaids. So this gives you a different happy feeling. Moonlight that feels cool and melancholic. So even though moonlight is like silver, it's giving you a cool feeling. It is evoking a melancholic, a sad. Maybe it's a love story. Maybe there's a lover pining for his love. So that is the anticipation that should come up in the story. So keeping these elements in mind, anyone can build a story. All of us have the talent of building stories, of weaving stories. How is that? We as human beings have developed as a race based on storytelling only. When there was no writing, all fables and folklore was passed on from word of mouth, from the elders to the uh, next generation, and next generation to the next generation. So we are basically storytellers. Hunting was done, and there were situations that people faced at that time during hunting, which turned into stories of bravery, and which were spoken from village to village as the humans led a nomadic life there. So all of us have it in our genes. We just have to discover that talent. We just have to bring that out and see if it can, if you can use this in your daily life in a much fruitful and productive way. So that is the power of storytelling. Now, if we have time, I'm not sure of that. Can you all help me build a story? Shabana ji, can you just everybody can just let me know.
So what? Can you repeat the question?
Unmute and I would want everybody to help me build a story. Let's weave a story together. Okay. Is everybody there? Okay, let's take that. That somewhere in South Madras, on a hot summer evening, a house surrounded by lush green trees on a quiet street, quiet, except for the shrill sound of laughter of children, interspersed with the tranquil voice of the old woman, maybe regaling them with stories of Mahabharata or Ramayana. What happens next? Can someone tell me? What can happen next? Come
Can
on,
you
give.
just repeat the last paragraph, what you said?
Yeah, so there's the tranquil voice of the old woman, who's probably telling the children some stories, maybe about the Mahabharata or about the Ramayana or some other fable. Then what can happen next in the story? Give rein to your imagination. You think about how it can go. All of you.
So she sat down in the Theosophical Society garden, and all the children were eagerly listening to her.
Yeah.
And suddenly there was a chirping bird which came just flying down where they were all sitting. And then she started relating the story of Garuda, who sort of uh, fought with Ravan when Sita was taken away in the chariot.
Yeah. Wonderful. This is so beautiful. Okay, so she's telling a story of bravery, of righteousness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
How does she weave the story? Let's hear it from you. I want you to weave the story. So the bird came down and she's talked about the Garuda.
Yeah.
Tell
You want me to repeat or somebody else to repeat?
anybody can. If you want to continue, you continue.
Okay.
Make us.
So she heard a lot of cry and slew from the chariot, and she was very, very uh, sort of very pitiful, or you can say very, very sad, seeing Sita being pulled by her hair. And then she saw some jewels were falling down. And then, even then, she kept on fighting with the charioteer, with the Vimana, and till she was slewed. Her both the wings were cut and she came down. So now this is the story where I end, and let somebody else take it.
So it is so beautiful. Like, yeah, you are giving the message that everybody should be treated with dignity. Nobody should be pulled by the hair. That's not a
Yeah.
good way. That's very humiliating, insulting, and it has to be something to be fought about, because it is your right to be like that, to respected, right? So
Yeah.
yes, this very very good message. I would probably, if it were my story, I would probably say, these children were just not happy about eating anything. So the old woman would tell them about Garuda, and he would say Garuda is a huge bird, and he would eat. He would When he would eat, he would open his beak really wide and then eat whatever he had to. And so open your mouth wide, and she would just put some food in their mouth. And that's how the kids were so enraptured in a story that they just went on eating, and they had their proper meal, as any parent would want. So my idea of telling you this was that it can be a folklore, it can be a epic story from an epic, or it can be a mundane day-to-day routine, which you put in a story and you utilize it. So like feeding the kids, which I'm sure a lot of mothers face. Kids don't
Not a
eat.
problem. Yeah.
They don't eat their meals, and dadis and nannies probably feed kids like this only, rather than chasing them all over the house and putting
I'm doing that. That's why I know the story.
morsels in the mouth. It's the best way. Make them sit down, tell them a story, put something in their mouth. Yeah. And so then from there on, I would have built it. And maybe told them the story of Ramayana and the part of Garuda, as you just told. Somebody else would like to share this, please? Your imagination about a story, about the story. Okay. Maybe everybody's thinking. Maybe next session we could have, someone sharing more stories. Now, stories can be day to day, your own day to day life also. Like last time, told you about my story. That how did I come into storytelling, and from HR profession to storytelling? What was my journey? So that was a story. And then I also told you a story about how the frogs are married in India to evoke a good monsoon. And they are married in the way we do marry ourselves, like with the session and all. So that was a story. So a story can be also an incident that happened at the bus stop while you were waiting for a bus. It's just the way you say it that makes it into a compelling story. So the way you communicate about anything, about any incident in your life, or about anything which you have read about and you want to share it with somebody, that becomes a story. And how you say it, the kind of modulation of voice you use, I've not touched upon that at all this time. I've just told you what the power of storytelling is and how you can weave a story. Voice plays a huge part in storytelling. So that we will do some other time, because that's a long topic and will require a lot of practice also. So, any questions from anybody, I would be happy to take.
One
No
short story. I think we still have some time, so we want to hear your complete story.
I will tell you a story.
Yeah.
Okay. So, this is a story about a very strong, sturdy, powerful mountain, a huge mountain that stood in the expanse of land all alone. And it had a crater at its foot. Now, that crater turned into a lake, beautiful lake with trees around, butterflies, flowers, bushes, green grass, birds chirping, beautiful paradise. How did that happen? So, this is a story about that. So, let me start with this. This is at the time when the earth was actually spat out by the sun. So, please go. I don't want you. And the earth was grappling in the space, trying to find some, space for place for itself in the whole creation. And then it decided it should just go around its mother sun only and not try and go venture elsewhere. And so it caught hold of the moon. It was a friend of his, and it said, let's just go around here only. Let's not go further in deep into the space. That's so scary. So at that time, it was very hot on the earth. Volcanoes, earthquakes, and whatnot. And over millions of years, the earth cooled down. And once it cooled down, you could see craters, you could see mountains. But this one mountain was the only mountain in the whole wide expanse of land. And it stood there. And it had only the moon for its company. So during the daytime, it was very bored, nothing to do, nobody to speak to. But at night, the moon would rise high above the mountain. And both of them looked at the creation around them and would share some stories, some feelings with each other. Then one day came a bird flying. Flap, 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 flap. and it came and perched on the shoulder of the mountain. The mountain tried to shrug it off, but the bird still continued to sit there, shrugged it off again. But the bird continued to sit there, said, "Oh, please let me sit here. I am so tired. It was such a long flight, and I have to go so far off. Please let me be here. You are so strong and sturdy, so powerful. Can't I just rest for a while?" "Mom, who are you? I don't know you. I don't want you here." "Oh, please. I will tell you some stories of the lands that I visited." That made the mountain interested. "Okay, tell me a story." "So, all right. Do you know there are dinosaurs there? I've seen those dinosaurs. And they're huge creatures, big ones. They only eat grass. Some of the dinosaurs, they eat other dinosaurs. But most of the dinosaurs eat grass. Such a big person, such a big creature. How can they eat only grass? How funny is that?" So the bird started telling him stories. So 2 days went by. The moon would rise at night and listen to the stories too. And the mountain, day and night, was listening to the stories of the bird, the adventures, the lands which the bird had seen. Then 2 days later, the bird told the mountain, "Oh, well, I've rested enough. I have all the energy now. I think I should move on. Bye bye. I will see you next year again. I will miss you, my friend. Do remember me. Bye." And it went flap, 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 flap. It flew on. And so 1 year went by. The mountain was all alone again. And the next year, the bird came again. So flap, 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 flap. And it came and sat on the shoulder of the mountain. "How are you, my dear friend? I missed you. I brought more stories for you." So the bird was very eager to know about the stories. "Tell me more stories. I missed you too." So the bird says, "Oh, well, I told you about those dinosaurs. Well, now they are dying. They were hit by a meteor. I don't know what happened. Such big creatures, how can they die by a meteor? But they're all dying now." So he told him various stories. And that's how they spent their day together. And the next day, the bird said, "It's time for me to go." So it said, "Okay, I'll go and I will come back again next year. Each year, I promise you, I will visit you." And the bird flew off. And so through the years, the bird would come and visit the mountain. Yeah. And the friendship grew really strong. And the moon would also be a witness to that friendship. It would rise high up and listen to all the stories and all the talks which the mountain and the bird had. Then many years later, the bird came and said, flap, 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 perched on the shoulder, said, "I am so tired. I cannot take this journey anymore. I am growing old. My friend, I can't fly anymore. This is too long a distance. Please excuse me. I will not be able to come next year. I wish you well. You are going to be there for eternity, but my life is limited. Farewell, my friend. Take care. I shall be now going." And the bird flew away, flap, 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 into the horizon. Now, the mountain was shocked. He had never thought that he was going to be there for eternity. And his friend, the bird, was a mortal. So he was very upset. He was so sad. The entire day he was thinking about how he's going to live his life without a friend. Then in the evening, the moon rose. And when he saw the moon, it suddenly hit him that he's back to what he was, all alone. And he started crying. The mountain cried and cried and cried. So much that those tears formed rivulets which went into the crater and filled it up. So he cried for days together, and the crater got filled up into a beautiful lake. And with all that moisture of the tears, whatever seeds were there in the bird's dropping, they sprouted. So you got a nice pine tree here, a cedar tree there, some flowering bushes. And when all this sprouted, the birds, more and more birds started coming in. The bees flew in for the honey. The butterflies flitted all over the flowers, and it became a beautiful paradise. Now, the mountain, who thought he is going to be all alone forever, suddenly had so many friends. His one friend had given him such a beautiful gift, so many friends, and he was never lonely again. The moon and the mountain were never lonely again. So, this is the story of the mountain, which had a lake at its foot. Now, this story could have ended here, but actually it did not. So, I'm telling you that a group was asked what could have happened next. So, some people said, then the two legged animal came and it cut down all the trees there. Yeah. So you know that the human beings, they started deforesting. Then a group of children came and they swam in the lake. They did boating and they did fishing. So that was another, progression to the story. Then someone said, one two-legged person came and he went and sat under a tree and he meditated and he became the Buddha. So there are many versions to a story. You have to just let go of your imagination and come up with whatever you feel, how you want to end it. It's your world, it's your imagination. You can give it a twist the way you want it. Idealistic, realistic, like deforestation is a very real problem that we are facing, but was said in a very simple way that they cut down all the trees, so the mountain was again lonely. Yeah. So we must preserve a land. That is the message that goes through this. So that would end my session today. I'm saying I would be happy to take any questions if there are. We have little time, I think just 2-3 minutes, but we can go ahead. Hello.
Thank you, Amrita ji. Such a wonderful story. It's really nice.
It was wonderful to share it with you all.
Yeah. Anyone want to share your comments or any questions or suggestion or anything? Ruchira ji, Usha ji.
So it was a beautiful thing, and since even I'm basically very fond of telling stories to my grandchildren, so I enjoyed your session a lot. And the way you said you need voice modulation, so I also use a lot of voice modulation when I'm telling, like, suppose if there is a wind coming or somebody's coming, it's a creepy thing, so I say, ooh, and then I say knock, knock, and those kind of things. So mm, just to make the story very realistic. So even I have that thing in me to say, and
Yeah.
I read a lot of mythology book from Mahabharata, from this, and even Jataka tales and Panchatantra. So from those, I really tell a lot of stories to my kids.
When you create the sound of the air or wind blowing like whoosh,
Yeah, yeah.
That is the 3D effect.
That
Like
is
when
a
the
thing.
bird came and sat flap, 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 flap. That
And
is the
with me, it's not only that, suppose when I get too engrossed in telling them, so I'll stand up and, suppose if I have to say something was crawling, so I'll just put my hands like this, So this was crawling, and I'll walk slowly to show them, yes, and then I'll go and tickle them on their face, and I
Yes,
said, this is what is happening. So just to give them that feeling,
yes.
this was creepy and this was crawling and this bird came. And I do a lot of actions with my hands. See a deer. So I say this is
You know,
like
this is a limitation we have on the online thing.
yeah. So I'll just say like this, see, this is a deer. I can't show. Like, wait. Yeah, this is a deer. And that this is the well, like I'll say a cow, something like that. And it opens this is a crow. This
Oh,
is so when you put your two hands together, which I'm just catching the phone, and so this is a fish, and this is even poetry. Like I say, machli jal. This is the way I say machli. I'll put both my hands on it, and I say machli jal ki rani hai, जीवन उसका पानी है, हाथ लगाओ तो डर जाएगी, those kind of things. So I have these very small kids in my house, so that's how I am with them, most of the time.
very nice. I just love this, and this is how I have grown up. Machli jal ki rani hai, जीवन उसका पानी है, all
Yeah, yeah.
those
And even when I have to tell them about story about hare and tortoise and jug, even there's a very nice like ichakadana bichakadana dane upar. So I'll dance and show it to them. Say this is उसके सिर पर something, जो गाना जो चलाती हूँ,
yes,
क्या नाम है? So it is क्या, then I will say क्या, like that, So they don't know, but then I say bhutta because it has so many danas on them, that way. So
yeah.
that's how I tell them,
Having platform should give us a live audience sometime, get us all together and where we can share each one of us can share our skills there. That'll be much more better.
Yes.
It
That's
just comes spontaneously, because when it's your kids and you want to make them engrossed and they're not eating or they just want to see TV, that's how I started doing all this,
absolutely. It's much better than making them watch TV. It's better that you give them stories and you feed them. That is
Yeah. But then even if I show them, my daughter-in-law doesn't like them that they should sit in front of the TV or mobile. But then, I tell them I show them like about Krishna Janam, Krishna Leela. So this is the way the Makhan, Damodar Stuti, when they are singing in the YouTube, I sing with them and I say, see how the mother is catching hold of Krishna's hand and tying it with the drum, So all that, I have to tell them because they were because he was naughty and she takes a stick, it doesn't mean that she's literally hitting them, so all that I have to explain to them.
so nice, so wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing all this. This
Thank
gives
you. Thank
us poetry I can use in my next sessions. Thank you.
yeah.
So anyone else with any question? Yeah, I guess Shabanaji, that would be it, I think.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Amrita, for a wonderful session.